hard New Deal question on the AP exam. It's some shape, form, or question. Okay? The New Deal coalition. Guys, the Gilded Age was the domination of the Republicans. This time period, domination of the Democrats. From 1932, which is the election that elected Franklin Roosevelt, until 1945, the end of World War II and his death. Okay, this is going to be the age of the Democrats. It's the age of Roosevelt. He was president the whole time. Okay. Okay. America's economy was revitalized. When people started having hope that maybe there was something different out there through the New Deal, the economy was revitalized. It wasn't necessarily rescued, okay? But guys, the main reason Roosevelt got elected is he was willing to try something, anything. Most of what he was proposing was radical. It was socialistic, but it was better than the Depression. Okay, so people start to feel differently. Guys, when you're stuck in a rut, okay, and things are not working for you, any change will help. And that's what's happening here, okay? Okay. The Democrats will be dominant after the election of 1932, okay? Biggie. Poverty is not racist. Poverty knows no race. Poverty knows no gender. Poverty knows no ethnicity. If you're poor, you're poor, okay? And when the Great Depression hit, and African Americans saw that white people shared the same burden they did, okay? They looked at the two parties and they discovered, you know, what Roosevelt has in mind is better for us than what the Republicans do. So this is when African Americans will switch as a demographic to the Democratic Party.
Okay. Yeah. Didn't they just use African Americans for votes, though?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that's a good point. The point is a matter of perspective, okay? African Americans look at this as, okay, who has the better deal for us? We're poor, we're sharecroppers, it's the Great Depression. So if you look at the two parties, which one holds the best future for us? And they chose the Democrats. No matter which way they go, if you're on the other side of that, if you're the parties, all you want is their votes. That's why the radical Republicans wanted to get them after the Civil War and Reconstruction. Guys, anytime you have a voting bloc, whether it's African Americans, whether it's Hispanic Americans, whether it's women, as far as the party's concerned, the reason they're important is they have votes, okay? If you're the person being courted for your vote, you have your own desires and things, but you're absolutely right, okay? One of the big arguments right now today, and guys, the reason I keep telling you guys this stuff is because today's environment is rich for synthesis. It's stuff that you can put in your essays. One argument that the Republicans have against the Democrats for supporting open-ended immigration is because the Democrats don't like these people. They don't care about these people. All they want is their votes, okay? And looking back in American history, it's hard to argue with that, okay? Now, if you're a poor El Salvadorian immigrant coming up through Mexico, okay, that doesn't matter to you. What matters to you, if you're legitimate and you have your family with you, what matters to you is I want to go somewhere I can feed my kids. Okay? So again, that's part of the political game. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. Politics is a matter of perspective. Constituencies are a matter of perspective. What you want from your party is one thing. What your party wants for you is something else. That's a good point. Okay? Okay. When the war starts, Roosevelt's got to change. The old phrase that always comes up is he had to go from Dr. New Deal to Dr. Win the War. This pretty much is what happened with Lend-Lease. If you're asked a question about the New Deal, okay, look at it broadly, okay? Did the New Deal solve the Great Depression? Guys, the New Deal had crapped out by 1937 with the Roosevelt recession. It didn't do it. So here's the point. Why did he keep on getting overwhelmingly elected when his policies were declared unconstitutional, okay, and they didn't work? It didn't matter if they worked. It mattered if the American people thought they worked. The fact of the matter is Roosevelt was trying something that Herbert Hoover would never have done. So as long as you got somebody in there trying, coming on the radio every night and telling the American people, we're going to try this, we're going to try this, we're going to try this, and as long as you have the CCC out there in WPA, as long as you can see people going back to work, at least you have a little bit of faith. So the main thing that powered the New Deal this time is the American people's faith in it. Sometimes faith is misplaced. You guys know that, okay? But the American people said, thank God he's trying anything, okay? Yes, it's radical, but we need radical solutions, okay? These people were fully aware that the same situation existed in Germany. And they're fully aware that the German people had put a radical at the head of their government. And what that person had done had worked. Okay? Always remember context. Always remember context. Okay? So because of the success of Hitler in Germany and rebuilding the German economy, okay, America was willing to take a shot on a socialist. Okay? And because he was making an effort, that's why the New Deal persisted. But in the long run, it didn't work. It didn't work. It actually crapped out in 1937 with the Roosevelt recession. Okay? What did work was the Battle of Britain. When the Nazis started bombing London and we passed Lend-Lease, that's what ended the Great Depression. At that point, Roosevelt can't worry about the New Deal anymore. He's got to go sign the Atlantic Charter. And he's got to figure out what happens if we enter the war. Okay? So there is a transition between the New Deal and us becoming involved in World War II. It's typically speaking the years between the Roosevelt recession and the Battle of Britain. 38 to 40, pretty much. Is everybody good so far? Okay? All right. The New Deal coalition is going to take a beating in the war. All these bright young minds, all these people that voted for him, that kept him in office, are going to take a beating. Because the New Deal coalition was formed to fight the Great Depression. It was not formed to fight a war. Okay? So people that Roosevelt needed in the coalition, they were economists and things like that. You don't need them anymore in the war. So you'll see this thing start to shrink. In addition, and listen carefully, a lot of the people in the New Deal coalition, they joined this because they were idealistic. We're talking young people. And we're talking young people that saw Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal as an attack on capitalism. If we reform the government with these socialist programs, then eventually we will see it erode capitalism. Okay? This is why Roosevelt's administration was infested with Soviet agents. A lot of young people would join the New Deal, and especially Alger Hiss. They were young, they were idealistic. Okay? And back before the war, communism wasn't the evil it later on would be. So you start to see young idealistic people become involved in the New Deal coalition, and as time went on, some of them left, some of them stayed. Alger Hiss, Whittaker Chambers, Harry Dexter White, the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, okay? Latchlin Curry, who was Roosevelt's #1 advisor. These were all young idealistic people that thought that the New Deal was the shift from capitalism to socialism. Once they got in the war started, they're there. Okay? Roosevelt's government didn't hold anything for him anymore, but the Soviet government did. And that's why we have such infiltration. Okay? Is everybody with me so far? Okay. This is important. The radical nature of the New Deal will last only as long as the Depression does. As long as you need radical programs, they'll be okay. But the minute that Depression's over with, Americans want to do just like they did back after World War I. They want to go back to the good old days. And the good old days of these people are the 1920s. Okay? So America will welcome radical programs like the New Deal as long as they think they need them. Guys, look what happened after World War II. The greatest amount of prosperity in American history. Okay? And there's not a shred of the New Deal in sight. Okay? Okay. Yalta, a biggie. We still don't know the depth of what happened at Yalta. Okay? The Venona papers told us a lot. When the Soviet archives fell, we went and did research. In 1985, when the Soviet Union was still around, a KGB agent, he was a KGB, I think he was a general pretty high up there, named Matroikin, defected to the United States. He brought with him suitcases full of documents he snuck out of the Soviet Union. Okay? And what he had in those documents, the United States matched up with Venona. And they were dead on. Okay? including those documents, was the Soviet version of what happened at Yalta. It's different than the American version. Okay? We can go into that later. The main thing right here is when you go to Yalta, the overall conception is that Roosevelt got used. Okay? When we went to Yalta, we stood there for certain basic things. Roosevelt went there, and the only thing he got was the division of Germany. Okay? He did not get free elections for Eastern Europe and Poland. Okay? So Roosevelt's overall legacy will be hurt by Yalta. He was in extreme bad health. He'll be dead 2 months after he gets back. Harry Hopkins, his aide, said a lot of times he would sit at the table at Yalta and sit there shaking with his mouth hanging open. Okay? And the reason is he was near a stroke, which was what finally killed him. He was in extreme bad health. A lot of times he didn't understand what was going on, and people like Harry Hopkins and Alger Hiss answered the questions for him. Okay? So we know now that Roosevelt was pretty incapacitated up there. He was not the person we should have had representing the United States. Okay? So that's one reason why Yalta was so far tilted towards the Soviets. His failure at Yalta is going to damage his legacy. Okay? And it's going to make the American people think that America is pretty susceptible to accepting socialism. Okay? Republicans. Not a good time for Republicans. Okay? They were sitting here and weakened by Hoover. When Americans looked at Republicans, they thought one thing, Herbert Hoover. They blamed the stock market crash on Herbert Hoover. They blamed the Depression on Herbert Hoover. Okay? It wasn't Hoover's fault, but Hoover was a Republican that believed in laissez-faire, and he's not going to get in and start jacking around with the economy. Okay? The Republicans suffered because of Herbert Hoover. Okay? In 2008, when Barack Obama ran for the Democrats and John McCain ran for the Republicans, okay, John McCain suffered because of George Bush. Okay? Public opinion was so much against George Bush that John McCain spent the whole campaign distancing himself from George Bush rather than engaging Barack Obama. Okay? That's what Republican candidates had to do during this time period. Okay? Okay. After World War II, big deal. It's the time period we're talking about right now in class, okay? Conservatism is back. And the reason is, if you're conservative, you're patriotic. If you're Democrat, you're part of that nasty communist New Deal. Okay? So the New Deal was great as long as they needed it. But when you fight World War II and come out and find out there's a new Red Scare, then all of a sudden the socialism of the New Deal is not attractive anymore. It's subversive. Okay? So in the 1950s, conservatism is patriotic. These are the ones that sat here and accused Truman of being soft on communism. It's why Eisenhower was elected in 1952. Okay? All right. The New Deal is going to be put to the American people in the 1950s as subversive, as socialistic. We almost fell into Stalin's trap. Okay? And we did so because we were desperate because of the Great Depression. We survived it. We survived it. We'll never go there again. So Republicans are going to use the New Deal, okay? And the fact that there were spies like Alger Hiss, like the Rosenbergs, like Klaus Fuchs and the bomb conspiracy. They're going to use that to say the entire Franklin Roosevelt time period was pretty much handing us over to the Russians. Remember, guys, this is the 1950s. That paranoia is everywhere, okay? Okay. The fact that we won the war and the fact that American prosperity reached an all-time high is what hurt the legacy of the New Deal. Yeah, we had the New Deal, but nobody was prosperous during the New Deal. Nobody got rich. Nobody had 2 cars in the garage and stuff like that. That only came after America defeated the Germans and the Japanese and were taking on the communists to protect our prosperity. Guys, remember, the main reason America was prosperous in the 1950s and it grew is that during the war, people had saved their money. People had saved their money. And after the war, when consumer products were available again, they spent their money. They didn't borrow it. They spent it. Okay? These are traditional American values that aren't seen in socialism. So if you're a Republican during the 1950s, guys, you've got everything. If you're attacking the Democrats, you've got everything wrapped up in 2 words. New Deal. The New Deal was wrong. It was bad. It was socialistic, communistic. Okay? And you could blame that on everything. Remember how Harry Truman had his own ideas about the New Deal? And remember how the Republican Congress wouldn't give him anything. The only thing they gave him was desegregating the military. That is the reaction, the backlash to the New Deal as being socialistic. Oops. Okay. Is everybody good so far? Okay.